Alright, so if you guys watched my video from yesterday, which broke down Apple's 1.5 hour long developer video, you'll know that Apple mentioned gaming on their Apple Silicon Macs many times. So we know that Apple is obviously making a big push for gaming this year. So in this video, I want to respond to Tailosive Tech and his viewpoint that gaming isn't going to change on Apple Silicon Macs, and I'll explain why I think it's actually the opposite. Now, I watched Tailosive Tech's response to my Apple Silicon video on his Twitch livestream, and first of all, I want to say that I respect his stance and his opinion, and I want to thank him for being humble and respectful. And by the way, go and check out his channel because he makes some very awesome videos. His viewpoint is that even though Apple is now finally making their Metal graphics tools available on Windows, and even though iPhone and iPad games are coming to the Mac, it's still not enough to encourage AAA game developers to start bringing actually great games to the Mac. His main point is that the gaming market on the Mac is currently not big enough to make it worth it for developers, which I actually agree with, at least right now. That's why we don't have very many great games on the Mac, and that's the same reason why Rocket League for the Mac was cancelled. So now, let me explain my viewpoint on why I think Apple Silicon is gonna revive gaming on the Mac. It's obvious that this year, Apple is putting a huge focus on gaming, so I'll quickly list all of the main changes. For the first time ever, Apple is giving us full-fledged controller support for third-party controllers across all of their platforms, including supporting every single button, even the rear triggers on the Xbox controllers, and the light bar and the touchpad on the PS4 controller. The iPad is finally getting keyboard and mouse gaming support for the first time ever, which includes the ability to lock the pointer for full-screen games. Apple Silicon Macs are going to be able to run completely unmodified iPhone and iPad apps and games as is on day one, which is huge. And they're already automatically translating touch-based controls on an iPhone to act as a mouse pointer, click, drag, and even zoom. And for more complex games, since the iPad is getting keyboard and mouse gaming support, Apple Silicon Macs will instantly get that functionality as well for the games that adopt it. Or of course, they can use a gaming controller instead. Apple also completely revamped their Game Center, which now supports cross-platform online multiplayer gaming across the Apple TV, the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac. Apple is now allowing the resolution and UI of landscape iPhone and iPad apps to be automatically resized to match the native resolution of Macs, so 16:9 for the iMac and 16:10 for the MacBook. And Apple is completely changing up their Swift UI, Metal APIs, and coding so that developers have to do as little work as possible to support all of Apple's platforms. And they're going to continue working on this every year with each WWDC event. So basically, Apple is setting the groundwork or the foundation so that if a game developer decides to bring their game to the Mac, it's going to be easier than ever before, it's going to have much better controller input support, and it's going to take less work to actually maintain the game. Now that's where we reach the problem, which is Tailosive Tech's main point. How will this encourage game developers to actually start bringing their games to the Mac? Well, first of all, the main goal that game developers have is to make money. And whether this upsets all of you guys or not, over the past few years, mobile gaming has been quickly taking over the gaming market, while PC and console gaming has been slowly going down. And this trend is expected to continue, so realistically, in the long term, if game developers want to make as much money as possible, they eventually need to bring their games to mobile devices. And that's why we've recently started to see AAA game developers transition to mobile gaming. Here's a quick list of some of those games: Epic Games and Fortnite, PUBG Mobile, Blizzard's Hearthstone, Activision's Call of Duty Mobile, Riot Games and League of Legends Wild Rift, Apex Legends Mobile, and Blizzard's Diablo Immortal. These are some of the very first AAA game developers bringing their games to mobile, because that's where the money's at in the future, and Apple Silicon Macs are going to be able to run all of those games. Now, I will agree and admit that the current x86 AAA Windows games that you currently love to play on your PC are not going to come to the Mac unless the developer decides to port it over. But here's why I think AAA games are gonna make it to the Mac. Because Apple Silicon chips in the iPhone and the iPad have been getting so powerful in recent years, in fact, even supporting ray tracing, this shows us that the Apple Silicon Macs are gonna be even more powerful. And based on the calculations that I made in a previous video, Apple Silicon Macs have a ton of potential. So within a couple of years of chip improvements, like TSMC's 3nm process coming to Apple devices in 2022, the performance will be so good that game developers will realize that they can build much better games for these chips than ever before. And since the mobile gaming market is taking over PC gaming with each passing year, more and more AAA game developers will start creating better and better mobile games, which will eventually become the AAA games of the future that will run on ARM-based Macs and ARM-based PCs many years down the road. And since those games for the Mac will use the same code base as on the iPad, the iPhone, and the Apple TV, the developer doesn't have to optimize and fix bugs for the various platforms separately. This was the reason why Minecraft for the Apple TV was cancelled, and why Rocket League on Mac was also cancelled. The developers had to invest a lot of extra time and money into maintaining those games for those platforms, which they won't have to do in the future. So basically, this is how I can imagine AAA games on Apple Silicon Macs playing out in the future. A game developer will first create a game with very high quality graphics for the Mac, and then make minor and relatively easy adjustments, like lowering the graphics quality presets, the resolution, and adjusting the UI for every other Apple platform, like the Apple TV, the iPad, and the iPhone. And that way, their game supports all Apple devices while only having to do the bulk of the code work one time for the Mac. So they're reaching the maximum amount of the Apple gaming market. So if a game developer ultimately wants to create a game for the iPhone, they can first do their code work as if it's for the Mac, and reach all of Apple's platforms at once, instead of just the iPhone, which is definitely worth the work of adjusting the UI and the resolution across different platforms. And the beauty of it is that when there's a bug that needs fixing or code optimizations that need to be done, the developer only has to do it once, since the main code is shared across the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple TV, and the Mac. This alone will make it worth it for developers to bring their games over to Apple Silicon Macs. And since Apple now supports universal purchase across all of their platforms, you can buy the game just once and have access to it across all of your Apple devices. So a player can play that game on their Apple TV on the big screen, or on their MacBook at a coffee shop, or on their iPad on the couch, or on their iPhone while on the bus, and their progress is automatically saved across all of the platforms. And that person playing on their Mac will get online multiplayer crossplay support, so they can game with players using any Apple device platform, depending on the input controller device that he's using. Now, of course, all of this is not going to happen overnight. It may take a few years to see this kind of gaming fully implemented. But what I can tell you is that this is definitely going to begin when Apple Silicon Macs start making it to the market later this year, and game developers realize that they can kill 4 platforms with one code by building their game for the Mac first. And it'll definitely start to begin when Activision Blizzard and other game studios announce how much revenue their new mobile games have already brought in, like the current Call of Duty Mobile, and future games like Diablo Immortal and League of Legends Wild Rift. And the even bigger point is that if these initial changes to gaming that Apple made to their platforms at this year's WWDC already make all of the things that I mentioned in this video possible, imagine what Apple is going to announce at future WWDC events over the next couple of years that'll make it even easier and more worth it for developers to bring their games to the Mac. So based on all of that, I'm extremely confident that Apple Silicon is gonna improve the gaming situation for the Mac, since it'll support where the future gaming market is currently headed, which is gaming on ARM architecture-based chips. And this transition will be sped up significantly if over the next couple of years, Apple Silicon turns out to be much more powerful than we're expecting, which may in turn cause the next version of Windows to support both x86 and ARM-based chips. And maybe in a couple of years, Intel will have no other choice than to start investing more into making ARM-based chips. However, I do want to agree with Tailosive Tech on one point, that the current x86 Windows games that are available on PCs right now probably won't be making it to the Mac. And for that, I actually have a really great solution for that problem. So if you want to know how that's going to be possible, click that subscribe button above right now so you don't miss out on my next video. And definitely check out Tailosive Tech's channel right over there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.